Let's talk about Aphrodisias. I mean, what a name, right? This was a city dedicated to the goddess of love and beauty. It was so magnificent that the Emperor of Rome, the most powerful man in the world, called it his own. It was a city of incredible art, carved from some of the best marble anyone had ever seen. And here's the kicker. For over 1,000 years, it was just gone, completely lost to history.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How does a whole city, a thriving metropolis, a hub of culture and power, just disappear? I mean, so completely that it basically becomes a legend. Well, the answer is somehow both way simpler and way more incredible than you'd think.
See, Aphrodisias didn't just poof out of existence. It was buried. Buried by time, by devastating earthquakes, by sheer neglect. And then, centuries later, a whole new village was built right on top of its ruins. Just imagine that. People going about their daily lives, living among the ghosts of emperors and artists, with absolutely no idea of the incredible world that was literally right under their feet.
So, how did we find it again? What was the moment that started to unravel this whole incredible story? Well, let's dive into that. Section 1. A Lost City Rediscovered.
Okay, picture this. It's 1958. The legendary photographer Ara Güler is driving to a job in rural Turkey, and he gets completely lost. So he hitches a ride with a local farmer, and he ends up in this tiny, remote village called Ger. And what he finds there is just mind-blowing. The villagers were just casually using priceless ancient artifacts for, well, everything. Roman columns were holding up their houses. Incredibly detailed sarcophagi, yeah, they were being used as troughs for their animals to drink from. They were literally living inside a museum and didn't even know it. Now, to be fair, experts had known there were some ruins in the area for a while, since like the 1700s. But it was Ara Güler's incredible photos, once they got published in an American magazine, that just created a global sensation. The world was absolutely captivated. And that attention is what finally got the money together for a real full-scale excavation. It kicked off the life's work of archaeologist Kenan Aram and really brought Aphrodisias back from the dead. But as the digging started, everyone quickly realized this wasn't just any old Roman city. There was something really special going on here. So what was it? Well, it turns out it was this perfect mix of things, which brings us to Section 2, Goddess, Marble, and Power. So the recipe for Aphrodisia's greatness really boiled down to two key ingredients. First up, its divine connection. The city was a huge center for the worship of Aphrodite, the goddess of love. That drew in pilgrims, and with them, a ton of prestige and money. And the second ingredient? An incredible earthly treasure. The mountains nearby had some of the absolute best marble quarries in the entire Roman Empire. And we're not talking about just any old rock. This marble, the Aphrodisias Murmury, was something else. It was super high quality, really soft, which made it a dream for sculptors to carve with incredible detail. Plus, it had this unique, beautiful, creamy color. And get this is amazing. The local quarrymen were so skilled, they could pull out single, massive blocks that had both black and white veins running through them. Can you imagine? This resource wasn't just the heart of the city's art scene, it was a massive economic engine, making Aphrodisias a top exporter of luxury sculptures all across the known world. But it actually took a third ingredient to push Aphrodisias from just a wealthy city to a full-on imperial superstar, and that was its special relationship with Rome. Which brings us to Section 3, the Emperor's favorite city. Yeah, that's a direct quote from Emperor Augustus himself, the first and, let's be honest, probably the most powerful Roman emperor ever. So why was he so obsessed with this one place? Well, it's all about family. Augustus's family, the Julio-Claudians, claimed they were directly descended from the goddess Venus. And who is Venus? She's just the Roman name for the Greek goddess Aphrodite. So for Augustus, this city wasn't just some random holy site. It was, in his eyes, his family's divine ancestral home. And there's this one guy whose life story perfectly illustrates this connection. His name was Gaius Julius Zoilos. I mean, what a story. He started out as a local kid from Aphrodisias, was taken to Rome as a slave, but he was smart and talented, and he rose up to become a trusted aide to the guy who would eventually become Emperor Augustus. For his loyal service, he was granted his freedom, and then he came back home, not as a slave, but as a super wealthy, powerful Roman citizen who was basically best friends with the emperor. And what did he do? He poured his fortune and his influence into turning his hometown into an absolute marble masterpiece. And yeah, being the emperor's favorite came with some pretty sweet perks. First off, tax exemption. Not having to pay taxes to Rome was a huge economic advantage. It meant all that local wealth could stay local. The city's temple was also granted sanctuary rights, which basically made it a legal safe zone, drawing in even more people and money. And on top of all that, they got a direct flow of cash from the emperor himself. This unique combo of protection and funding let the city's arts and architecture just explode.
Okay, so you've got divine favor, perfect marble, and a ton of imperial cash. What did all that actually build? Let's take a look around. Time for Section 4, a tour of grandeur.
Okay, first and foremost, Aphrodisias became an absolute artistic powerhouse. It had a world-famous school of sculpture. The artists here were true masters, and their work, these incredibly detailed statues, sarcophagi, and reliefs, were shipped to every corner of the Roman Empire. They were really setting the standard for what Roman art could be.
30,000. Let that sink in. 30,000 people. That's how many could fit inside the city's stadium. And to this day, it is one of the biggest and best preserved stadiums from the ancient world. You don't build something on that scale unless you are a seriously wealthy, populous, and important city.
And then you have the Sebasteion. Now, this wasn't just another temple. It was this incredible three-story complex designed specifically to celebrate the Roman emperors, linking them directly to Aphrodite. It was covered in these amazing reliefs showing the emperors as gods and conquerors. It was basically a masterpiece of political propaganda, all carved in beautiful marble.
But you know how these stories go. Like all great empires and cities, the Golden Age just couldn't last forever. So let's turn to Section 5, from glory to ruin. The decline was sort of a slow burn, this devastating one-two punch of natural disaster and huge cultural shifts. First, a massive earthquake in the 4th century just wrecked a lot of the city. At the same time as Christianity was on the rise, the city's entire identity, which was built on a pagan goddess, became a problem. The great Temple of Aphrodite was actually taken apart and rebuilt as a Christian church. Then, another huge earthquake hit in the 7th century. After that, they even changed the city's name to Stavropolis, or City of the Cross, essentially trying to erase its past. With its gods rejected and its buildings in ruins, people just left, and the city was slowly swallowed by the earth.
And that brings our story right back to where we started, to the 20th century and the rediscovery of this buried treasure.
Section 6. A legacy unearthed. You really have to talk about one man here, Professor Keenan Aram. From 1961 all the way until his death in 1990, for 29 years, he dedicated his entire life to this one single place. His passion, his dedication, going back year after year, is what systematically brought the city's secrets back to light. It was his life's work that took a few scattered ruins in a village and turned them into the absolutely breathtaking archaeological park you can visit today. He loved it so much, he's actually buried right there on the site.
And eventually, the world really took notice. After all those decades of painstaking work, in 2017, Aphrodisias was officially named a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And that's a huge deal. It gives the city the highest level of international recognition and protection, basically ensuring that its incredible story will never, ever be lost again. It's just a wild thought, isn't it? A city this magnificent, this important, was basically found by accident, all because a photographer took a wrong turn. It really makes you wonder, what other histories, what other entire worlds are still out there, lying just beneath our feet, hidden in plain sight, just waiting for their own chance discovery?